95 Charlestown in Nevis. So give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. By the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. Your voice in the community, thought that get results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized, and when you're getting on the show you take as little time as possible so we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards, but we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. You can also follow our live video stream via our Facebook channel at Vaughan Radio and on our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio. Thank you all again for joining us. Your voice in the community, taught that get results. Tonight, the Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a very pleasant good evening to my colleagues around the table, and an extra special good evening to, how should I put him, manager, Calypso manager extraordinaire. Good evening. Good evening to the many listeners of this edition of the Let's Talk program tonight. Let me say good evening to all those who are celebrating a birthday, a wedding anniversary, or some accomplishment in their life. I think I remember seeing somewhere today that Conrad Liebert was celebrating his birthday. If that is so, I want to say happy birthday to him, and I hope that he's having a wonderful, wonderful birthday tonight. Whereby I want to take this opportunity and to record my congratulations to our Prime Minister who got married over the weekend. I've been in the business now for over 20 years, and it's a very good business to be in, so I want to say to him, welcome to the club, and I certainly wish him and his bride many, many, many happy, wonderful years of marriage. Webbo, I want to say that we have a number of families here in the Federation who are in mourning tonight, and some of our relatives and loved ones overseas who are in mourning. Certainly want to take this opportunity to offer my deep condolences to all those families who are in mourning tonight, and I certainly hope that while they think about their loved one, that they can remember their loved one with fond memories. And I hope that they can look on the good and the positive that their loved one, their friend and their colleague would have left behind as a legacy. Webbo, I want to thank you for the invitation, and I am indeed looking forward to the discussion tonight. Thank you so much.
Roger Fifield, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and thanks for the invitation again. And I too, like the Honorable, would want to say, sympathy greetings to all those who are mourning at this point in time. And of course, those who are celebrating, we bid you happy birthday, happy anniversary. And tomorrow is Valentine's Day, so I would want to wish all who celebrate Valentine's a happy Valentine's Day when it comes tomorrow. And also, special good evening to my fellow panelists.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. Good evening to my fellow panelists, and let me make a special welcome to the heavyweight program and to the Honorable Roger Fifield. I call him Honorable simply because of his duties at our borders. All right, it's a heavy load to carry, but based on my listening last week to the program, he's got several feathers in his cap, some of which I envy. Should I use that word? Well, let me just leave it at that, simply because I don't want to cut him short at the legs, because he deserving all the accolades that are bestowed upon him based on the work he has done in the community and the rest that needs to be done, because we got plenty of work to be done in this community. And based on what I heard, he carries many titles. So, Roger Fifield, I welcome you to the Heavyweight program, and I wish you 36 plus years on this program. 36 plus years on this program, meaning I hope you will be able to surpass me in terms of my contribution. All right. Well, I must say that I listened to the Prime Minister with reference to our economy, and sadly, again I would repeat, sadly, how could we not having those people who are called by Marriott, who are beckoning by Marriott to take up the employment that is available? Listen, I am just saying, I wish those jobs were around when I was growing up. Let me repeat that. I wish those jobs were around when I was growing up, because I put in an application at Montpelier. Is when I'm in St. Croix in Montpelier, answered the application, but I can't come back. No way. But with the activity, hotel activity in our nation, I think those people who are in our community not working, please go to Marriott and find out exactly what kind of help they want. And I'm certain the pay based on the minimum wage is big. Minimum wage right now is somewhere in the region of $11. Correct me if I'm somewhere. Yeah. So it's not peanuts. It's good money, and especially if you are at a certain low age, it's good money, which means if you manage it well, you would be able to arrive at a certain level of prosperity. So in that regard, I am giving the Marriott and the Prime Minister, because the Marriott said to the Prime Minister, we need foreign workers here, and the Prime Minister said he will not approve any work permit when we got so many people around here needing those jobs at the same time. If those people are not listening, if they are not interested, you have to grant Marriott the permits that are necessary to ensure that their operation remains afloat and run efficiently. So, Mr. Prime Minister, I urge you to give Marriott a little slack, cut them some slack, give them some time. But if for some reason the time has elapsed, the reasonable time has elapsed, and nobody becomes interested in those vacancies, grant Marriott the application to bring in foreign workers. Because we went abroad. I operated in the hotel industry for 5 years. I learned a lot in the hotel industry, and as a result, it is a good job, and I am urging the Prime Minister to apply, bring in foreign workers, but again cut Marriott some slack with reference to reasonable time. Webbo.
Well, but I thought that the Prime Minister's comment were very interesting, and I think that he would have alluded to the fact that the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis continued to rebound from the COVID pandemic. to see that there are businesses that are advertising vacancies and are finding it difficult to fill those vacancies, it tells you a few things. One, that perhaps persons are finding other options in as it regards to employment. And two, it also gives the clear indication that the employment level continue to improve and continue to expand. I don't think that we can fault the Prime Minister too much for taking the position of not being so eager to grant work permits. I believe that there are still some persons in our various communities that are still seeking employment. And if it is that he can wholly line a bit and ask these various institutions to, look around a bit more, try and see if you can, try and see if our people can take up those various positions. So I wouldn't want to. I think it's a position that I think that all of us who are in government would want to see as far as possible and as much as possible that our citizens are given that opportunity. If it gets to a point where our people are just not prepared to take up those various vacancies, then that's a different story. So I feel that we can wholly line a bit. Even right here in Nevis, our Labour Department publishes certain job opportunities on a weekly basis. There are various businesses throughout the island that continue to hire, and there are various new businesses, and I think that the opportunity continue to avail itself where our people can get gainful employment. So I believe that based on what we are seeing, one, I think that the economies of St. Kitts and Nevis continue to rebound after the COVID pandemic, and I think if we can just hold it a bit more to see if we can continue to get more of our people employed, then I don't think, Mr. Stanley, that that's such a bad thing.
Well, let me go a little further. I understood that the hotel industry, tourism industry, is going to be put on a pathway to be an all year round industry.
Well, it must. It must.
Which is quite good for every person who is living here. I said in the past, and I said it over and over, St. Kitts and Nevis as a country is the best place on earth to be. Unfortunately, people are clamoring to go to the United States. Border patrols, border management, and whatever legislation is required, they will pass it. I hope they will pass it. Because if you listen to Zakaria, it's a program that comes on Sunday morning on CNN, and based on many years ago, going back when all the Jews came out of Russia and Ukraine and the like, there were far more people coming to the United States then than crossing the border now. But I'm not sure as to whether or not the legislators of the Congress of the United States are aware, but the attire of those people and the color of the movie or the film tells you that it was from maybe 1948, that far back, when people migrated from Eastern and Western Europe to the United States. Now, I do not understand how the modern management of border management has not gotten hold of those tapes, or even to listen to Zakaria and to see that these facts that he has brought to the fore are quite poignant and relevant to the problems we are having at the border in the United States today. So, based on that as a comparison, those people who are the current managers of the border should take a page out of the dissertation or the book of Fareed Zakaria that I said comes on around 10 o'clock.
You're talking about GPS, the program he called GPS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stanley, if I may, I think that a Calypsonian might have been out of St. Kitts, who penned a song or sang a song some time ago and it goes something like this: "There is no El Dorado out there, my dear. The streets are not paved with gold." And I quote those lyrics from that particular song to say that, persons now are understanding and they are viewing United States of America differently. If we look at what's going on currently, you'll see a number of persons who went to the Big Apple, so to speak. They are returning at a pretty young age, 35, 40. Gone are the days when persons would have go to the United States and come back, just to retire, so to speak. We'd come back when they're 60 plus, 70 plus. We find that, younger persons, well, I am seeing it, I don't have the data actually, but I am now seeing it, that persons are coming back at younger ages. And it must say something about us in the Caribbean, something about us in St. Kitts Nevis. The Honorable Minister and yourself spoke to what the Prime Minister would have said, and there are indeed jobs that are available, and we have to make up in our minds. Sometimes we don't necessarily get the job that we want, but how I look at life is that whatever you do, you must try to do it to the best of your ability, because I like to say when you now want the job that you desire, that job on the hill, you must now remember that the employer of that particular firm, they are going to inquire of where you are coming from, about you, your work ethics, and stuff like that. So you never know, so you just have to do the best at all times. And I believe that St. Kitts Nevis is now rebounding also. Both of you would have said that, and we are taking off, and it's a good time.
There's still El Dorado out there.
I was waiting for that.
I guess that cannot be found.
Seek and ye shall find it. And what I'm telling you, if you are lazy and you have no vision, you wouldn't see the El Dorado. I don't know if you remember, a long time ago, we would find a penny, a brass penny, and we would rub it in our hair, and it becomes like new.
It becomes like gold.
Gold.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, Mr. Stanley, is that,
Gentlemen, let me just take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, I'm calling out of St. Kitts. This is DuPont. I like the idea when you all speak about employment and so on, the economy and the rebound in St. Kitts Nevis. But I have something to tell the youngsters in St. Kitts Nevis. My profession need people to work in it, but I want Kitishans and Division to learn my profession, which is a jeweler and watch repairs and these things. We still have room in St. Kitts Nevis for 12 of them. I make a very good living from my profession as a jeweler, but I am coming to the end of my time now, and I'm pretty concerned, and I am kindly asking the young people of St. Kitts and Nevis to get into my profession. Learn as much as you can in terms of the jewelry, the making of wedding bands, setting diamonds, fixing watches, fixing clocks. Money in that for them to make an honest living and a good living. So I thought I should speak about that. And to finish on the note that I am so happy these days. It feels to me like St. Kitts and Nevis stand a chance of living together in harmony. Sometimes when we had the three-party setup, it was like a new day in St. Kitts and Nevis, but that fell through. Without getting into that tonight. Why? But these days, I'm feeling some hope again. And I am asking the good citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis to work hard to encourage our young people to be positive and not to sit back and wait and wondering when the government will pay out the next set of money. Because I grew up as a very poor guy, you know. I want people in St. Kitts and Nevis to get that in their minds. I, Carlton Elroy Emmanuel DuPont, I grew up as a very poor boy. But my idea was not to be poor all the time and work for people. But my idea was to always learn a trade. And here I am today with the grace of God. So I don't want to keep back the other callers. I just want to say, I am happy with the new feeling that I have now, with the hope between Dr. Jew and Mark Brantley. It feels to me like St. Kitts can rebound again. You all have a good evening. This program is nice. I'm enjoying it.
Caller, could I ask you a question?
Yes, you can.
Why do you think you reference and encourage the young persons to get with it, learn a trade, there's money to be made, correct?
Yes.
Why do you think they're not doing that?
Okay, well, I could answer you honestly, you know. The reason why they're not doing that is because over the last 25 years, we have had so many people become independent and the government. And Webbo is bothering me. If it's Webbo I'm hearing talking to me, it sounds so to me. It's really bothering me, you know. You know, because I have been doing my best in St. Kitts all through the island to encourage young people to come and work with me. Webbo, I'm not telling you any lie. I have had many youngsters coming to work with me to learn this trade. But most of them that came did a very poor job. Instead of learning, they were actually taken. And I am telling you the truth. I'm giving you an honest answer. The question you asked me is relevant. Our people, the young people, sitting back and waiting when the government will make a next attempt to pay some more money. And what they're not seeing is that if the government constantly do things like this, it will give us problems down the road. People don't want to pay anything at all. People don't want to pay duty. People don't want to pay taxes. You know how good I feel that God has blessed me with a job. That tomorrow, God spare life, I'm going to pay for all my properties and everything. And every time I sign that check, I am telling you the truth, you know, because this is how God wants me to live. Every time I sign that check, pay house and land taxes and all these things, I feel a sense of pride. I feel a good feeling within. But the normal thing with human being is that we don't want to pay. It's bothering me. So young people, truthfully, I'm answering you, they're waiting to see what they can get instead of learning trade. And that is why, Webber, 3 years ago I asked the former government to give me $100,000 every year. I went up to Florida. I spoke to professionals who know me 40-something years in business and trust me. And you know what they told me they would do? They would have come to St. Kitts, spend some of their time and teach 12 jewelers in St. Kitts Nevis, 7 in St. Kitts, 5 in Nevis. Just give me 100,000 every year. You know why I did that, Webber? Because after the 12 months, when I finish training these guys, I will give all of them all of the necessary tools to go and work like how I start in a bedroom at home in Sandy Point. I want the young people in St. Kitts and Nevis to understand, instill some pride in yourself, become more industrious, become more self-sufficient, think less of the government providing something for them and think how they could assist in building the country. I feel good. I'm telling you, I feel good. I'm getting old now, much older, and I don't want to do my work anymore.
Okay.
The reason why I'm still working is because a lot of people in St. Kitts, 30,000 people in St. Kitts, they trust me to do their work. That is why I'm still working.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for engaging me.
Yes. All right.
Roger, you have a question for the man, or you want to make a comment? I'll let you go.
Well, first I must commend the caller for at least wanting to pass on his knowledge to the younger generation, and I believe that persons who are so inclined, they should, try to reach out to him. I'm sure, there are many ways, in contacting him, and as he said, it's a good way of making life. So I want to impress on all persons of all ages, especially if you are not working, to reach out to Mr. Dupont.
Well, what I'd like to say is that when I got out of primary school, I wanted to work for the Treasury Department because I considered myself to be a bright boy. Anyway, my mother told me, you're not going to get any job at Treasury. At the same time, you're not going to sit on the path wall and eat out your British bottom. So I'm going to take you up by this gentleman, early libel, and learn a trade. I said to my mother, I don't want to be a carpenter, nothing. I want to go on anyway. Luckily, just like Mr. Dupont now, wisdom is in people who are older. They see clearly what the future holds, and my mother was able to get me to learn a trade. The first opportunity as I reached to St. Croix, I put down my tools and went into a different direction, went into the hospitality business. And I continued to change jobs as time went on. Move from the hospitality business to my own business. But before I went into my own business, I became an agent for Georgia International Insurance and Financial Services Company, from which I learned a lot. Stock market, the whole 9 yards. Based on the wisdom of my mother, who pointed me into the direction of learning a trade, which the valuation I do came from that same trade. And I wondered, had I not been an obedient son, what would have happened? So, Mr. Dupont, even though you have reached almost to the end of your rope, I do not know, maybe you got another 20 years in the business, continue to reach out and expound upon the desire to lure young people into the trade, because for me, there's something known as lucite. I was in Florida and I told the gentleman, I don't want you to pay me, I just want to learn what you're doing. You understand? So that is the attitude with regard to Mr. DuPont reaching out at young people, hoping that they would get the information, learn the trade, and ultimately make themselves a better person, a productive person. Now, I would have liked to have asked him, what would he have done with the $100,000 that, did he say to buy tools?
No. No, he didn't say to buy tools. He didn't say what he was going to do with the 100,000, but what he said about the tools, after the 12 persons would have trained, he would have given them the basic tools to set up, just like he did in Sandy Point in his bedroom, or in a room in Sandy Point.
All right.
Mr. Stanley, what I like about Mr. Dupont's telephone call and the message I think that he was trying to send, and I think that he did very eloquently, is that there are opportunities out there. I think that and he spoke about our young people, I believe that if they were to apply themselves and take advantage of these opportunities, they would definitely be able to earn a living, no doubt about that. I'll give you a classic example. From where I sit, sometimes we try to find persons to do certain type of jobs. The other day we were trying to find a gentleman to put up a stone wall. We wanted it to be done in a particular kind of way, and it was difficult. We know that
It's a special skill,
but exactly. And I'm there scratching my head, and we came across a gentleman, elderly, up in age, and I had a conversation. Say, I can't get the young fellas, and them took. I see them sitting and tell them come, and that's a skill that has been handed down to us for many years. And I did say to the gentleman that, look, try and find a couple young fellas and pass them off to him so that he can at least make that transition. Because he said, listen, I'm tired, I've been doing this thing for a long time. The body is not as able as it used to be to do. And I thought that it was a conversation where, here it is, that with this gentleman that is virtually crying out to pass on, and Mr. Dupont alluded to that fact as well. And I think that Mr. Dupont also...
Mr. Brandon, let me take this and I'll come back to you. Thank you for holding. Good evening.
Yes, I want the panelists to understand the $100,000 would have been to pay the professionals who come in from the United States for the year, because they would have been coming periodically. Like, I didn't want the 12 people go to America. I was going to bring in all the tools, the diamond setting equipments, everything here in St. Kitts. And for me, it was better for them to learn here in St. Kitts than in the United States.
Caller, might I ask, and what happened to that suggestion or offer?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I kept on asking the government because I was friendly then with the government, but they continued to ignore me. I don't know what the reason was, but that gone. But here, this Webbo, is important for young people to know what happened to me this week. I have a sister, has a daughter. 30 years ago, I called her. She was 19. I called her by name. I said, come sit here with me. I want to make history out of you. I'm going to take you to the United States. I'm going to send you to a school, train you to set diamond, do any kind of jewelry, and when you come back here in St. Kitts Nevis, you'll be a revelation to young women. She told me she didn't see that was something she wanted to do. Webbo, I don't tell lies, except for making joke. The lady returned last week after 30 years and asked me, Uncle, can you kindly send me to Miami? Returned from the United States, last week. And came to me quietly and said, Uncle, I think I had enough of living in America. I'm not making it. Could you send me to the university to do the trade? At 49. It is sad. It is sad that sometimes the young people don't really take the wisdom of the elderly ones. And Webbo, next thing I see in life that if we don't be careful, it will haunt us coming through our age. If Tom give an advice, if you see Tom as like a nobody, you don't take the advice. But if Mary give you think you could take it from Mary. That is something else I realize we have to cut out in this country, Wherever there is an advice, work on it and look into it and refresh yourself with it. So you know what I did with my sister daughter? I am not going to send her to any university to learn the trade. But once she living here in St. Kitts, I hope she's listening. If she's hungry, she will eat. If she don't have a place to live, I have lots of places to live. I can give her one apartment in my building where I am now. That is how I deal with it. But I want young people to understand going forward, Webbo, that we must learn to understand the wisdom of the adults. Webbo, last one. I have a son, my only son. 12 years ago, I called my son and said, look, it is time for you to go to university. I have some money here. I just came from Florida. I made all the arrangements for you to go to school. When you finish with that university, you'll be a revelation in this country. My son turned it down. Now, my son is looking for me now to help him run in his business. And I know no matter what money I pump in my son's business, once I'm not there around to actually manage the business, I'm not sure the business will run well. I'm not saying this to call him down, because I am a man who believes in reality. And one of the things I don't want to do with my life, though, I don't want to deal with life like condemning people, like condemnation totally. I am just saying to people, when you get wisdom, analyze it, think about it carefully, and make good decision and keep praying to God. Okay. So my son coming now to ask me for assistance to run his business. Not bad. Not bad. He's about what? Going up to 40 years? But by now, had he taken on what I was putting him through, he not going to spend a dime. I even get a driver in the United States to drive him from the hotel to the university.
Okay. I think I got the point, and I want to expand on something that you said earlier as well, and you can always call back in and and contribute to it, because you made an interesting point when I asked you the question. I want to expound on that.
Webbo, thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Bran, I interrupted you.
When Mr. Jupon called earlier, he said something which I thought that perhaps we can maybe take a look at and maybe expound on a bit more. I think he asked the question as to what the government were doing in terms of, I think he spoke about some of the young people are waiting for when the government is going to make the next payout or something to that effect. And the question must be asked, Webbo. While the government is trying to remedy a particular challenge or problem, is it that the approach is also creating another set of problems? And oftentimes when we look at situations and try to come up with lasting solution, and we feel that we are at a point where our approach may be able to solve a particular problem or particular situation. On the other side of it, or on the flip side of it, it can also have that perception or reality of creating other sets of problems. And maybe perhaps that is something that we can look at. We have had a number of programs here in the Federation where successive governments have sought to remedy certain problems by certain means. And here it is that someone from the community, and I believe that other persons may share that view, that what it is that perhaps the government is doing or saying may not necessarily be capturing or solving the problem that they are seeking to solve. Because while some persons are, as he said, waiting for the next tranche, the next payout, the next whatever you want to call it, is it that we are creating a society where we have now lost that desire to earn from our sweat of our brows and become a society where we are dependent on? And I think that that is something that, while we try to move the country forward, we have to be really mindful of. And if that is what is happening, then perhaps we have to take a second look, a third look, a fourth look, and a fifth look of all of these initiatives that we try to bring about changes in our country.
The problem you have with first look, second look, third look, fourth look, and fifth look at things, right, is that you don't have to wait until the first look, the second look, the third look, and the fourth look, and the fifth look fail. Right? When we're doing certain things, you can mitigate. There are certain things that you know likely can be the effect of certain things.
Yeah, you know what the deliverables can be.
Right? And if you ignore them, or you calculate that such as the fallout from this thing is worth it, then you do it. But what happens sometimes is that sometimes we plan and we don't think about the negative effects that this great idea can have. And were someone to point it out, they probably will be ostracized. And that sometimes is what the reality is.
Experience is the greatest teacher.
All the time.
And the thing that is permeating our society is this disease of laziness, this dependency syndrome.
You think the dependency come on just like that?
No.
Okay. So we put the policies and so on in place. We're very bright and brilliant and we know it will happen, but we still go ahead and do it, right? Because we're either afraid to say it or something like that. Ain't that true?
That is part true.
And sometimes when we have an opportunity, like now, to speak about it, we don't want to say it either.
Because
I think, Webbo, sometimes what happens is
the
that...
Webbo speak.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Roger. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying sometimes what happens is that persons are afraid to hurt other people's feelings at times, and maybe the feelings that would be hurt, need to be hurt, because then it's like it is hurting now for a better tomorrow. Because when you allow it to run and go, and then it fester, then something of a bigger magnitude happens. So sometimes we have to kind of speak up now. So the person might be vexed with us for now, but in the long run, I'm sure that they would understand.
Well, the thing is, the advice my mother gave me, she's in the grave now, and I say my prayers morning, mid-morning, afternoon, night, to thank her for forcing me to see what she was trying to show me. Because when I came back here, I was able to utilize the trade that she forced me to learn to become a valuator. And I did that for 36 years, and I'm still doing it. To understand measurements, understand the application of materials, understand how they fit in the general scheme of things with reference to a building, and the whole 9 yards. So I continue to thank her, and I hope that God bless her soul to the extent where I would see again when I got to the great beyond.
You know, Stanley, you would have said that your mother forced you. But I think in today's world now, we as parents, probably have to take some of the blame. Instead of going the extra yard to, quote unquote, to use your term, force, it's like we are begging the children, to be our friend, instead of letting the children know, look, you are my child. I am older, I have more wisdom, I am going to impart whatever knowledge that I have gained to you. This is the pathway that you should take. There are other pathways, but if you take another pathway, you might end up maybe the same place, but at what cost? And these are the things, that we have to instill in our children. I think that we as parents, because charity begins at home, and we as parents too, we have to try to instill these values in our children at home, and then they're going to be reinforced in school, and then ultimately when they reach to the workplace, they would already been instilled, and so they would understand the value. They would understand the value of life, the value of a product, and not necessarily the cost. Some persons had to head water, some persons never had to head water. So it's like, you, as the old people would say, some persons have the bread butter on both sides. And if you are one of those fortunate persons, you don't understand what it is to work hard, what it is to be determined to overcome all obstacles, all trials. So I think that we as parents, we have to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, have we failed our children? What can we do differently to mold them? And most of the times too, we get carried away in that we are saying, I don't want my child to grow up like me. But maybe we should allow them in some aspects to grow up like us, so they could understand. Because I think that sometimes they get it too easy. And just to go back to what Dupan said, he brought in some persons to work, and they stole, they embezzle whatever they embezzled. And I am saying this is the thing. It's like a quick fix for some persons. I don't want to say young persons, because it is persons of all ages. So it's a quick fix for some persons, and they may come today, they may come tomorrow, but what they need is consistency. You have to come, you have to get the drive, you have to get the energy, you have to tell yourself, look, I'm going to get a day, I'm going to get 2 days that I'm down, but I have to be disciplined enough to get up out of my home, get up, and just get going and get the job done.
Well, you mentioned the word force. My mother told me, boy, we are country people, I get no job at Treasury. And I think...
Let me just take this. I'll come back to you, Stanley. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello, good evening. Webbo, can I ask a question? This is on a different topic, though. Mr. Stanley mentioned earlier that he used to work as insurance when he left Nevis. But so I have a question for Mr. Stanley. Maybe he could answer it. Now, who is responsible for monitoring or policing the insurance companies, like the vehicle insurance companies? Who is responsible for doing that? Because the reason why I'm asking that is because 2 years ago my daughter got her license, so she's now driving the family vehicle. So the insurance company requests that we'll have to pay some additional money. Fine, pay the additional money. She drove the vehicle for a complete year, whole year, not a scratch, no claims. No claims at all. Now paying for the insured again. It's then a notice saying that the premium moved from just a little over $1,600 to a little over $2,800. So an increase of maybe a little over $1,200, something like that, if my math is right. So I went and I asked, well, why is it so why is the premium that high? They said, well, there's been a lot of accidents throughout the region, so the company has to raise the premium. And another answer I got was that the vehicle is a big vehicle, the engine size, and she's under 25, and so they have to raise the premium. But by $1,200, I find that is ridiculous. But my argument is that she drives the vehicle for a whole year without a scratch. We had no claim. So, how does that work? Could they just get up and raise people's premium just like that, and they had no claims? I'll listen off here. If I have to call back, I'll call back.
Well, we are an emerging country, and based on the fact that there are a lot of things that should be in place, they're not in place. Because to be an insurance agent here, you don't have to sit an exam. But we have to sit exams down here, and if you don't pass, you're no longer an agent. And based on that, once they decide to raise your premium, it is very likely that it is a cost factor based on the environment in which we are living. They may have increased the cost simply because statistics have shown that most of the accidents are caused by people who are under the age of 25. That is a fact. Additionally, because of the size, if the size of the vehicle becomes larger and the insurance company decides, let me categorize this driver as a high-risk driver, then they would increase your premium. But that increase was made by the board of directors of that particular company, and I'm almost certain that you didn't attempt to do shopping, comparison shopping, as to whether or not you could have gotten the same coverage for the vehicle and your daughter from another insurer without that exorbitant increase. At the same time, if they felt justified to increase the premium based on their cost of doing business, then it is a cost factor in doing business with that particular insurance company. So what I would recommend to you is to go shopping. Try and find, if you are lucky enough, because sometimes you have business collusion, and one company would call the other and say, we are increasing our premium, and therefore when you go to the other company you might find the same increase. So you have to be smart and wise to, in fact, get all the information and ultimately make a informed decision based on comparison. I hope I would have been of some help to you.
I would just add to that, Mr. Stanley. It is something that we have been seen occurring, also especially after, oftentimes after hurricane season. You know, sometimes we have throughout the region one hurricane that might affect one particular island, and then during the next year you realize that property insurance premium have seen some significant increases. I think that also what is also happening in the market is, it appears to me that a lot of the reinsurers are also continuously increasing their numbers on. It is something that the caller asked about who is responsible, and I feel that is something that throughout the entire region, I think that many of the territories throughout the region is wrestling with this particular issue, because from time to time you continue to see these increases without any justification, any real explanation. And it is of real concern for the people throughout. It's not only here in Nevis or in St. Kitts. We continue to see these kind of, especially, we continue to see it especially after hurricane. You may have a hurricane in let's say in Antigua and Barbuda, and then you realize that insurance numbers keep going up in other areas close to the island.
Let me get this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Mr. Herbert. Mr. Stanley, if I don't know if I hear you right, you said the insurance person who going to insurance have to run a course?
Well, in another jurisdiction, we had to sit exams that are monitored.
Yes.
By the Lieutenant Governor's office. From that, if you sit your exam and you pass, you get.
So the answer is yes?
Yes.
Okay. Caller, you had another question?
Okay. Yes, sir. So why the politician, they have to have a good course? If you went to a doctor, you have to study. If you have to, probably insurance, as you say, you have to went to a course. A teacher, you have to go on teacher's thing. But why a politician, you just don't have no study or nothing like that.
That's not true.
Huh?
That's not true.
Tell me what the politician have to do.
The politician went to school. Ask all of them.
Just went to school and come out and people like you and they vote for you and that's about it.
Well, listen.
What is otherwise?
It's a science. It is an attitude. It's a trade. It's an industry. And to get elected, you have to have certain skills, and those skills are not just pulled out of the thin air. Mr. Brantley is an architect. Mr. Brantley is a lawyer, and those people around.
You call please. Call someone, please.
Well, I've called two already and told you that they are, and because of their schooling, the height or the level at which they have arrived from an education point of view, people have evaluated them, and they know they got to become a people person in order to get the vote.
Probably
And
correct,
therefore
right?
they would hone their skills to the extent where they go out and hug and kiss and whatever they got to do.
Mr. Stanley, I find that a politician is actually just probably people like them, and they come out and they try to fool us. Okay.
Caller, let me ask you a question. You indicated that obviously you feel that for someone to become a politician there must be, and I'm if I'm reading you correctly and if I'm following you, are you saying that there needs to be a different pathway for an individual to become a politician?
Definitely.
And what would you prescribe that pathway to be?
I mean, just like a teacher go to teachers training college, a lawyer went to school for 2-3 years or whatever years, I don't know. I mean, a doctor went out there, I don't hear the politician went out there and do nothing.
So you would prefer that anyone who is interested in becoming a politician, that they need to go and study political science, for example?
Exactly. And another thing, I must say, when, how should I put it over? Like, the candidate, maybe 5 or 4 candidates, whatever, much a candidate, right? I mean, I might get some licks for this, but I can't help. Actually, come and put the name on the ballot paper, on the ballot, actually, and we vote for them. Then they come and they present some junior ministers to us what we don't like or whatever it is, and we have to call them minister. That is right, that is fair. You just go and present some, we vote for you, but then you just come and present 2 or 3 persons before us and say,
so you don't like the concept of nominated members or junior ministers?
No. Somebody should come back before the public. It's unfair.
No, it's in the law. It's in the law.
But it needs to be changed.
It's enshrined in our...
But it needs to be changed. It's not fair. You just pick who you like and bring them in front before us.
But those people who are nominated members, they got nominated on the strength of the vote given to those who are truly ministers.
We vote for them. We vote for them. We didn't vote for the junior ministers. It's unfair.
Caller, might I ask you a question just for my own edification and clarification?
Yes, sir.
Is it the point that you're making?
If I can answer.
Right. Is it the point you're making is that you're not disputing that the system is that way? But what you're suggesting, because we're always talking about changing the constitution and so on and so forth, are you suggesting, in your view, there should be a change so that all of the ministers that we get in the end are those that we voted for?
Yeah, exactly, Mr. Herbert.
Okay.
Exactly.
So, panel, that's the caller's point.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's wrong with that?
Exactly.
Yes, okay. So that's the caller's point. Put a different way. What's wrong with that?
My take is that the strength of those who are at the top, based on what is enshrined in the law, gives those at the top whom were voted in.
We understand that. What the caller is suggesting,
I hear you.
right, is that he has a different view. So my question is, so what's wrong with his view?
It's in a minority view.
But how you know that?
Because he is expressing his dislike for the system and doesn't appreciate what the system does. So I know he's in a minority.
Yeah, but so base you make the conclusion. I agree with him. Melissa agrees with that. Brian, where you stand on it? You prefer to have everybody who is going to be a minister running and then we know that, or you prefer the nominated aspect?
I look at it this way, and I'm going to try and give you a long answer, and I know you wouldn't want a long answer. In our system, let's look at Nevis, for example. We have 5 constituencies in Nevis, and we have the various ministries and portfolios to manage. It takes 3 seats in Nevis to form the government, and if it is that we were to saddle all of the responsibilities that we have to run the island of Nevis, you would then realize that you have only 3 ministers to manage the affairs of Nevis. Put differently, the responsibility, in my mind, that would be on these 3 ministers would probably be tremendous. Now, whether or not we can increase the number, that's a different story. I personally don't have any preference whether we can have all of the ministers as being elected or some nominated. I think that when you look at the workload of, in the Nevis context, for example, 3 ministers administering the various number of portfolios and departments and so on, it's a lot. So I to accomplish what the caller is saying, perhaps we would then have to dig a little deeper, and maybe we have to then think seriously about increasing the constituency boundaries in Nevis from 5 perhaps to 7 or to 9, and then you can have a wider spread and more people can get involved, and you can get, so it's not a clear cut, in my mind it's not necessarily a clear cut answer one way or the other. I think that you have to look at the kind of workload and the responsibilities and so on and so forth, and if you really want efficiency and productivity and so on and so forth. I hear the caller, and I appreciate what he's saying. It's not too much of a preference for me one way or the other. I am looking at it from the workload that in the Nevis context, you have 5 electoral districts. To form the government, you need 3. And to put the responsibility on the 3 individuals to run on it, I think that it's a heavy task.
You did say you're going to give a long answer.
Yes.
And then you did use the phrase clear cut. So let me bring it clear cut for you. You have a system now where you end up with 5 ministers. 3 in as per an example. 3 elected and 2 appointed. And you said that the workload requires, based on what it is, 5. What the caller is proposing is the same thing. The only difference is that instead of 2 being nominated, when you go to the poll, you vote for 5 people. So those 2 who will be nominated will actually have their names on the ballot paper, and the workload will remain the same, whether they are nominated.
Well, I disagree. You don't have the guarantee that the 5 individuals will be elected.
Hello.
Yes.
You are talking about the same people. We are speaking about 5 persons, right? You're talking about you hoping that it would have been Raja, for instance, and Edric, but we are speaking about 5 persons, right? But the difference is that the other 2 persons will not be nominated. For instance, if you want to keep the same system, what you can do is say, well, okay, you'll have 3, 1 run in St. Paul, St. John's, and this other place, and the other 2 run at large, where everybody could vote for those persons, but you end up with 5 persons.
The system, that's fine.
That is what the person, all the person is saying. The workload will remain the same, the island will remain the same, but the way you choose the people will just be different.
Everybody will be voted for.
Everybody will be voted. That's all the gentleman is saying. Yes, Mr. Fifield.
Webbo, what could happen is that, the 5 candidates in the Nevis island administration election. I think that what the caller might be saying is that, you know, the political parties, what they should do is to have present two persons to the general public and say, should we win this election, these are the two persons who would be the nominated members.
No, he don't want them nominated, he want them elected.
No, because what he said after the political parties would have won, they push persons on them to be ministers who they don't even know, in my words, would have been ministers.
Yeah, that's an option.
That's an option.
But I think Mr. Brannon, Mr. Stanley are arguing, well, they don't want them nominated. They want them elected.
Yeah.
That's another matter. But I understand the point Roger is making. If he is only satisfying the fact that I don't want any surprises, then the point that Roger is making will do, where you don't have to change the constitution and change the system and stuff like that. They're saying, Roger, if I'm understanding correctly, that will satisfy the fact that you don't want any surprises.
Precisely.
Well,
I think I'm due for a break. Let me get a break, and we will be right back. This is Thought That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, Roger Fifield, the Honorable Spencer Brand. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616, 1700. Be back after these.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
From Queen City, Nevis, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, Vaughn Radio.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with the Honorable Spencer Brand, Roger Fifield, Edric W. Stanley. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700.
there is on the news, there are two deaths of two children, in St. Kitts coming out of Monkey Hill. And I wonder how far that investigation is as to how these two children died. Anyway, we probably got to listen to the news tomorrow morning, as the case might be, to see as to whether or not they have been able to upgrade the information coming to the public so we can ascertain as to what happened and how it happened. This water system on Nevis, as we make preparations for Cultural 50. Could you tell us, Mr. Minister Brand, as to what these wells, how much these wells going to propose to cost?
Well, Edric,
yes.
Just pull up our news file here, and in reference to the query you were wondering, I think it says that the mother was charged.
Okay, very
so
well.
That is the updated info we have on that situation. One of the things is happening. I suppose we're having a lot of incidents that we hitherto were not accustomed to be having in the Federation. And maybe you can extend it across the islands, because you seem to have similar stuff. And these are things that I suppose, as an emerging society, we probably have to grapple with and try to mitigate against them.
Mr. Brand.
Oh, sorry. It's the death of these two children, a terrible incident to have occurred, and Webbo spoke about the fact that these kind of incidents are occurring, perhaps a bit more frequent. Persons are going through all kind of different challenges, different circumstances, and we don't necessarily always know all that is taking place in person's mind or life, and so on and so forth. And when we hear about these things happening, it is heart-wrenching, it is shocking, it is it leaves you in a kind of debilitating state to wonder. There is really no easy answer, no easy explanation for this kind of thing to have happened. I believe that it's a situation that I think that all of us would stand up and take note of, and we as a society, we as a country, we as a nation, as a region, really have to look more broadly as to how we interrelate with our people, and see how best we can offer the kind of help and assistance to make sure that these kind of things don't really occur, and mitigate against them as much as we can, and as deep as we can. Like I said, I don't think any of us know the real background and the entire circumstance. So I'm not here, and I will not sit here and judge anyone as to. But I think it's a real tragedy. It was very sad. When I heard it, you really hit you in the stomach. And you just hope that while we look at it and while we reflect, we can learn as much as we can from this, and that this kind of incident does not really occur again. Mr. Stanley, you asked about our water. We have gone through a process where we would have sent out some invitation to bid on some new wells. We received some information a few weeks ago. We have done some analysis on them, and I think very shortly we would be making an announcement as to which of those companies we would select to do this drilling. In the first instance, we are hoping to do at least three wells, based on the proposal that we have put forward, and the amount of water that we are looking for, at least 1.5 up to 2 million gallons for the extra water in this first tranche. We do recognize that the wells that we now have are not necessarily performing in the way that they should. We are the continuous drought, the infrequent rainfall. We continue to see some intrusion into some of our wells. I think that a lot of these wells have been pumping continuously for a very long time, and a lot of them really need to be rested. We are also, Mr. Stanley, embarking on the the geothermal project, which is going to be a heavy consumer of water for at least a few months. So it is absolutely critical for us to ensure that we are able to provide an adequate amount of water. We are also looking at the inclusion or the addition of some additional storage tank. We have one in the Morningstar area that we need to replace, and we are looking at the possibility of putting at least one or two over in the St. James's area, which is often heavily impacted whenever there is some water situation on the island of Nevis. There are a number of moving parts that we are looking forward to ensure that we can have implemented over the next few months. So we are expecting to commence that drilling. Well, in the first instance, agree on a selection as to who the driller will be, and then they would need a period to mobilize and then have that drilling exercise over the next few months. But it is something that we are dealing with front and center, Mr. Stanley.
Let me ask you, the technologies you're using, how fast can you get a 50-foot well dug? In the past, I had a well dug on another jurisdiction, and at the same time a new system came in, because we used to dig wells with the heavy.
The technology has advanced significantly.
Quite so.
One of the wells that we are looking at in the Gingerland area is over, I think it's over 1,500 feet. And based on the information that I have seen, they are saying that could be done in 3 weeks. So you see the technology has really advanced, and I'm very confident that they will be able to meet the timeline that we have stipulated.
Mr. Brown, if I may ask, do you guys, the government, that is look at alternative methods of harvesting water, like maybe catchment? For instance, in Antigua you have the Big Creek.
Well, we have had some ponds around the island that has been used for agriculture purposes. I know that the water resource management team have been looking at that to try and see how they can bring those back online, in particular for farming. We have sought to encourage our people to use either those storage tanks to harvest some of that water off of their roof, or construct cistern. We have been pushing the concept of persons building their homes with cistern. I think way back before we have advanced so far with our water that every single home either had a cistern or had some kind of storage catchment facility. I think that because we have gotten to a point where we have grown accustomed to water 24/7, a lot of those things got left behind, and perhaps we have to try and encourage our people to, in cases of emergency, because the system is all mechanical. I mean, mechanical stuff break down, and the minute person lose water for an hour or two, it becomes an inconvenience. But I think that as a community and as a people, we have to, one, build in sometimes our own redundancy in our own setup, and encourage persons to continue to use these systems. A lot of homes in Nevis have systems, they are just not being utilized. And but I think that going forward, in terms of some of those ponds in particular that we know that used to be used for farming, we are trying to see if we can get some of them back online, because the entire agriculture system on Nevis, well, let me backtrack that a bit. A significant percentage of the agriculture system on Nevis is on the potable water supply. And if you can wean some of that off of the government system, then you can have more water to be distributed. Yeah.
I think that would be a great idea to, get the ponds back and up and running, so to speak, especially for farming purposes. In the New River area, just below New River, directly below the New River, I think there's a pond there. I think that one was dug some years ago below. I don't know what has become of that. And I know for many years there's a pond at Pond Hill. But I am speaking of new ones, bringing in new ones on stream. Because as you rightly said, that would ease, the government supply. It would give it an ease. And it's because what happened is that a lot of houses have been built in recent times. And if houses have been built, then it simply means that there's more water usage. And if there's more water usage and probably the wells aren't quote unquote cutting it for us, then we probably need to look at catchment. And last week Thursday, was it, there was a lot of rain, and that the runoff could have been channeled into that catchment, for purposes, because we're heading into March, and we know when March comes what happens. It's basically dry. March, April, May. It's dry season, so to speak. And so I just wanted to know, how we are going in terms of that.
Well, we have started some of that catchment initiative. I know that we doing in partnership with the disaster management and the water resource management unit. We have basically outfitted number of the primary school, health centers, community centers with these catchment storage facilities.
Bran, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to come back. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, Mr. Brand, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Robert. Mr. Brand. Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, who are you trying to please? The people who come in for cultural 50 or the people that need it with water? And why you started so late?
Why I started so late? I didn't start late. We sent out our bids sometime late last year.
Can you, the word is, can you assure us that you're going to get water for cultural 50?
If I can assure you?
Yeah.
Caller, I can assure you that I would be able to get up out of this chair tonight. I have no guarantee but I will say to you that we are doing our utmost very best to get that.
Hello. Why don't we do this? Caller, you have a question from Mr. Brand. You ask him the question. You allow him to answer, and then we do that. Work with me. That's fair.
I will work with you.
Caller, let me go back. Let me backtrack to you a bit. In 2017, the Navy Silent Administration would assign an agreement with a particular company to do some water drilling exploration on the island of Nevis. I don't know if you are aware of that. Caller is gone?
No.
He is listening to you. If
you are aware of that?
No, I'm not really aware. I don't follow this thing. I just listen to the program.
Well, let me try and make you aware. In 2017, the Navy Silent Administration would have signed an agreement with a company to do some water drilling here on the island of Nevis. The people of Nevis would have paid and fulfilled their obligation by paying the deposit. To this date, caller, that company has not fulfilled the obligation of that contract. That matter is presently before the court. So I do not buy your argument that we have started. Yes, go ahead.
I didn't buy it either, because you pay them the money. You said the matter in front of the court. So it costing the people of Nevis, we at Nevis, it costing us. So when this matter going to be fact and you're going to get back your money, so to speak.
The court, caller, the court is an entity on its own, of its own. So that run its own natural life, natural course. But I'm saying to you, and you said that we have waited late. I am telling you that we have not waited late. We have entered into an agreement. We now have to enter into another agreement to try and fulfill our demand for water. So the thought or the thinking that we waited late, that is not entirely accurate, caller.
So can you like I don't know if I said it before, but can you show us that we get water for Culturama 50?
If I can assure you that we'll get water for Culturama 50?
Yeah, more water for Culturama 50.
The plan is, caller, is to get water as quickly as possible, and the thinking is that we are hoping that it will come before Culturama.
I understand. It's a hope, it's a plan, no problem.
Yes.
We all go, we hope and plan, but you weren't sure. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. You know, Roger, you wanted to say something?
No.
Okay, Miss. Let me get this. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. I am enjoying this program so much since it has so much to do with our two countries. When it comes to agriculture, I am a little bit worried about St. Kitts. I don't know a lot about Nevis, but for the last 35, 40 years, people in St. Kitts that are attached to agriculture, they keep asking the government for assistance. And yet, the government constantly give assistance. Every government from 40 years ago. But the same people, we don't see no real advancement. A guy in agriculture, 20 years, he want the government to send a tractor to plow his land. He need fencing wire. He need help to deal with monkey. The thing I want to deal with people is this. When you're in a business, you must work towards perfecting that business. If you can't do it, you get a loan and run your business. But the problem we're having in St. Kitts is people believe they're entitled for someone else to run the business in terms of agriculture.
Caller, I could ask you a question?
Yes.
Why do you think people have this concept of wanting the government to plow the land, wanting this and wanting? Where you think that came from?
I know where it's coming from. The promise that they go out and give when the campaign is.
Okay, so if we know what and where the problem is, and we would like it fixed, then we should do what?
Fix it.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the point, the thing is, I have a problem with, and it's hurting my heart, is that a man has an established agricultural business, and agriculture can bring good money. Why people in St. Kitts constantly asking the government all the time? They need feed. They need not feed. They need things to go in the land. They need tractor for plowing. And I Carlton say, if I was in agriculture, well, I don't believe everybody could be like me. I would have set my mind that I have to get with three or four other farmers and buy a tractor.
Caller, again, might I engage you?
You can.
Okay, so what I keep hearing all the time is we're explaining what issues we're having, and as per an example, you keep saying that the people keep wanting the government to give them feed, to give them this, to give them that and stuff like that, and they should change that. But what I'm not hearing is a suggestion that the government should stop telling the people that instead of you buying wire, I will bring it for you. So I would like to know, if you think that a person is getting something free all the time, and one day they will wake up and say, well, stop giving me this thing free, I'm going to work for it.
Wow. You put me to think. You know, I'll tell you this.
Here's a light moment, and that is good, because I have a friend of mine who tells me he doesn't think. But you just said that you were thinking. Okay, go ahead. Like I said, it was a light moment.
Let me say something to you. I don't know how many people listen to you over the past 30 years. But I could tell you, I might have disagreed with you on a few things, but not too many. But I've learned so many things from you. The way you articulate is great. Webbo, we want to show our people, even the politicians, you can't just go out and campaigning and foolishly telling people, give them all these load of promise. You see the point you were making there about the gentleman who called in? That was very touching to me, you know, because I'm here listening thoughtfully, I'm thinking, but I didn't think enough to say, well, stop. How can we stop our people to think, stop them thinking that, well, they're entitled to this? Because the question I ask people in St. Kitts all the time, who helped me to run DuPont's jewelry? Now people say, you only talk like that because things good with you. It's not really so, you know. I grew up very poor. I grew up very poor, you know, Webbo. But I had a determination, I had the intestinal fortitude to do good. But Webbo, I don't want to take up too much time. I'm saying I am seeing too many people, even this new government. There's a minister, a government down here, they call him Samuel. His name is Samuel. I don't really know him too well. But he is having problem now, and today I was listening to the news, and they was complaining that he's a failure. And when I speak to people in agriculture, they're actually telling me the minister is not a failure. It's the people want to destroy the system. The last thing I want to say, Webbo, is something pertaining to the death of the two children. I don't want to go into the fact who killed them. No, I don't want to touch that. But let me say this. When people reach to the stage of where a baby and a 4-year-old lost life, we have to look in society to see where we're going. Because the Bible clearly states, all the ways of a man seems right to him, but the end thereof are the ways of death. And to me, we are moving further away from godly standards and principles, and I pray to God, even for myself, every day, that I would live the rest of my life and work hard to be an example. We cannot fail our neighbors. We have to look out for our neighbors. I will never live nowhere in St. Kitts and Nevis without looking out for my neighbors. Let us check on people to see what they're going through. I'm not asking you to let them put the burden on you, but we must say, hello, Mr. This, hello, Sister That, and see what's going on. That is something we need to look into, you know. How 2 children could dead in a house with the mother in the next room, and I'm hearing that she was tied up. I don't know the facts into it yet. But let me say this. This program is very touching tonight for me, and I enjoy every bit of it. And one of the things I want to leave with the callers, all of us must try hard to respect differing views. If we do that, we will get you better in St. Kitts and Nevis dealing with our problems. Have a wonderful evening. 3 times is enough for me. Thank you.
All right, thanks much.
Yes.
Yes, Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Webbo. I want to believe, Webbo, that this is not pertaining to the death of the 2 children per se. But I want to believe that anyone who kills another man must have mental issues, some sort of mental issues. And that is why we as a people, we need to reach out to one another, as the caller would have alluded to. We need, because sometimes people are there and it's like we don't know what they are going through, but sometimes once you just go and you say hello, just by you saying hello to that person, it changed the whole perspective and outlook on life. Because sometimes they say, well, if this person can say hello to me and ask me how I am, that means I must be of some sort of importance. And people do things for various reasons. I remember as
I'll interrupt you. Let me get this. I'll come back to you. Thank you for holding. Could you go ahead?
Yes. Good evening to the panelists and the staff. The gentleman who called in sometime earlier to mention about electing the junior ministers, I think it's a workable system. It could be like a two-tier system. The electorate is already going to the polls to cast one vote. So perhaps, if it's going to be considered as an idea, that they can have a two-tier system. The electorate will vote for the main 5 politicians in each parish, but then they'll also cast a second vote for a junior minister, the position of a junior minister. So it could either be that each parish or party, whatever the case may be, will have one person that's there for the junior minister post, or all 5 parishes can have all 5 candidates available to vote for the junior minister. So I think it's something that could be, the gentleman's idea could be considered, and whether we have a referendum or some kind of meetings to find out if the rest of the electorate would agree with something like that.
Okay, so
to be considered.
Right. So you're in favor. You like it? Okay. I got you. You see something, Edric. Sometimes people give you praise or accolade, but sometimes they mean it and sometimes they don't. You always giving me accolades. I've been around for a while. I know my audience. I just told you. I challenge you. How you know that's it in the minority? And I'm doing a.
So you get the confirmation.
Work with me. I'm doing an unscientific. So who's leading? Me.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that it's enshrined in the Constitution as a matter of fact. The two-tier system, she mentioned two-tier system. So if we're going to amend the Constitution, as the case might be, let us bring about the two-tier system at the same time.
So in other words, work with me. We don't have a lot of time left. In other words, you're coming on our side.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
That's why I like you.
Because what I'm
Go ahead.
As it is enshrined in our Constitution with the top echelon and the nominated members, if we want to arrive at a new juncture, let us put into the Constitution or amend the Constitution to say that we now have a two-tier system, at large, as you mentioned, and the regular ministers. Done. Doesn't mean that I agree with
a system that you would support.
Yeah, well,
Say you support.
So in other words, where is Ted? Where is my Ted? I would. Ted were here. I said, Ted, how am I doing? That's why I like Edgewick.
But well, I think that the ideas that the various callers in terms of certain changes that they would like to see, I think that as a nation, after 40 years, we have seen quite a lot. We have seen quite a bit, and the general public, they have been paying attention over all of these 40 years, and obviously there are things that they would like to see change. There are different approaches that they believe can bring better results, and I think it's a good idea, a good base from which we can continue to look at how best we can move these two islands forward. To listen to Mr. Stanley say that he is willing to support, well, you know that you are making some good progress, isn't it, Mr. Stanley?
Listen, I gave you my takeaway. Webbo, based on the callers who called, might have added to his numbers.
But not to yours.
But my numbers are coming. My numbers are coming.
After the phones are closed.
Here, the system is already enshrined in the Constitution.
Yes, we understand that.
So it means that you would have to now spend additional funds to get the new system in place. So if I am conservative enough, why change it? Simply because some people feel that this is a better system. The person you're giving to us, we don't know, or we don't know who he is, and we can't trust him, like Mr. Roger said. It's based on trust, and therefore once it's on the ballot, we know that that is a change of system. He has to be elected, just as the higher echelon of ministers would be elected. I don't really have a problem with it, but people are resistant to change.
That is true.
And in that regard, I am saying, if it's not broken, why fix it? My next my thing here, the amount of fiasco that Trump is bringing into the system. In the last World War, Poland was an ally to Britain. By treaty, Britain was supposed to have defended Poland. But Germany decided they're going to roll through Western Europe like a hot knife going through butter.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of square miles had fallen into German hands. Now Reagan was able to get Germany unpartitioned. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. The famous quote from the late Ronald Reagan. Now, Russia, because of the size of the USSR, Union of Soviets, Socialist Republics, 6 million and 6 square miles, if my memory serves me correct. And based on the size of United States, which is 3,900,000 something square miles, China is smaller than the United States. As a result, they all are lining up. And Trump now is saying, if you don't pay, I'm not going to defend you. And so many picadillos he's bringing out. So many picadillos he's got in his orbit. But ultimately, in my view, Trump cannot win this election. he's going to get the nomination, but I just believe and I hope that he'll never get back in the high chair in order to become or lead United States out of NATO. NATO is the trump card, the safety catch to oppose the Union of Socialist Republics, which Putin wants to re-establish Russia as the big Magilla simply because of its size. But history has now proven that it is not as strong as it was when it was the Soviet Union of Soviets. And as a result, he marched into Ukraine, and if the United States doesn't support Ukraine, which Trump does not want Vladimir Putin to fail in terms of his annexing or his attempting to annex Ukraine. So in that regard, he must not be given the opportunity to win an election in the United States to get back into the high chair. Additionally, where we stand, the border in the United States, Trump is going against the passage of the bill that is supposed to be in Congress, simply because he wants to have that as an issue to run on in the general election. It must not happen. And let me say, it can't happen. He's got so many faults, not qualified to be the president of the greatest nation on earth. Not qualified. And therefore, we're hoping that the case with Fannie Willis and the January 6th insurrection charges, 91 charges are against him. How is he going to get from all of them? The Supreme Court now is going to give him that last win, that last presentation that they had. The guy, Murray, who was representing Nevada, he wasn't hot. He was not hot at all. But Trump had a good lawyer. And the Supreme Court is going to give him this win. But he cannot win with the insurrection that occurred on January 6th. So, again, one of his supporters on CNN called him an a-hole. I mean, I don't understand how CNN allowed that bad word to go through.
I'm not allowing no reference to it. That's it. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark, and join Keats Cabro on Thursday evening at 8 o'clock for Government at Work. A way to spend all of your evenings right here on the Eastern Caribbean Spa House. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertiser.
With all the power from the tower,